मुझे यहाँ आकर बहुत खुशी हुई.
In a huge victory for Indian economy despite Donald Trump's dead economy jibe, America's biggest ally, the United Kingdom, is betting billions on India's rise with a mega trade deal.
The Prime Minister on his leadership, aiming to be the world's third largest economy.
Meanwhile, MNCs continue to leave Pakistan in droves due to the struggling Pakistani economy, rise of violence and unrest, and an unstable future. India-UK partnership, however, is not just about trade. Impressed by Indian Air Force dominating Pakistan in the recent war and destroying 11 Pakistani air bases, now Indian trainers will train British Royal Air Force fighter pilots. India and the UK also signed a $350 million defense deal for multi-purpose missiles for the Indian Army and Indian Air Force, as well as cooperation in electric engines for Indian Navy warships. While UK has also backed India's inclusion as a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council as the world's largest democracy, soon the third biggest economy and the fourth biggest military power.
This is the biggest trade mission to India that the UK has ever sent.
British universities have also come in numbers to open their campuses in India, chasing highly talented Indian students amid Trump's H-1B visa drama. India and Britain are also forging a robust alliance in artificial intelligence as AI will reshape our world as we know it within the next decade. Neither India nor the UK can afford to be left behind in what is currently a two-horse race between the US and China.
Global framework for ethical AI के पक्ष में रहा है.
So why exactly is the India-UK free trade agreement a huge victory for India amid US trade war? Which sectors will benefit? How will this help Indian professionals? And following Britain, is an India-US trade deal now closer than ever? Let's get you the details. In a huge snub to US President who called India's economy dead, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer kicked off Britain's largest ever trade mission to India to boost bilateral trade and investment. Prime Minister Narendra Modi met UK PM Keir Starmer in Mumbai on the 9th of October as they shook hands before holding high-level talks which focused on trade, education, defense cooperation and regional stability. Addressing a joint press conference after the meeting, Prime Minister Modi stated that the partnership between India and UK is driven by trustworthiness, talent and technology.
भारत यूके सहयोग को नई ऊंचाइयों पर ले जाने के अवसर बने हैं.
He added, India's dynamism and UK's expertise combine to create a unique synergy. On the other hand, Starmer hailed talks as the beginning of new modern partnership focusing on the future. He described the talks as really important, calling the free trade agreement signed earlier this year the biggest deal we've struck since we left the European Union. I think it's also the biggest deal that India has ever struck, so it's hugely important, unquote. Expressing confidence in India's economic growth, UK Prime Minister stated that the country is on track to become the third largest world economy by 2028 and is a global player. Starmer stated, "We sit together in the Commonwealth, the G20, and we want to see India taking its rightful place on the United Nations Security Council too. So we are committed to strengthening our strategic partnership." Both sides agreed on a defense pact that involves cooperation in military training, under which flying instructors of the Indian Air Force will work as trainers in UK's Royal Air Force. This after India established total air superiority over Pakistan in the recent war, smashed 11 Pakistani air bases, and evaded all Chinese radars or Chinese-made PL-15 air-to-air missiles.
India is a emerging superpower, and Saudi Arabia is not going to want to alienate India.
On October 8th, British Prime Minister had greeted the huge British trade delegation en route India on British Airways Flight 9100 to Mumbai.
This is the Prime Minister. I'm in the cockpit.
Starmer said cheerfully over the intercom in a clip he later shared on Instagram. A delegation of 125 of the UK's most prominent CEOs, leading entrepreneurs, university vice chancellors, and cultural institutions are accompanying the British Prime Minister on this historic visit to Bharat. These includes officials from industry giants like Rolls-Royce, British Telecom, Diageo, London Stock Exchange Group, and British Airways. Now, both the sides have said they are looking forward to ratifying the trade deal and bringing it into effect within the next year. Starmer told the delegates to implement the deal as quickly as humanly possible. He added, "I think the opportunities are already opening up. Our job is to make it easier for you to seize the opportunities." Modi and Starmer attended the CEO Forum and the 6th edition of the Global FinTech Fest in Mumbai, while Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal and UK's Trade Minister Peter Kyle also held bilateral meetings to oversee the implementation of this trade deal. The two sides reaffirmed their joint ambition to increase bilateral trade to $120 billion by 2030, nearly a growth of 10 times from $23.1 billion in FY25. This will focus on key sectors such as advanced manufacturing, digital trade, clean energy, and artificial intelligence. Remember, the development coincides with the tariff upheaval caused by US President Donald Trump after he imposed unfair and hypocritical tariffs on India for buying economical Russian oil, at a time when US and NATO's strain with Russia is greater than India's energy imports from Moscow. India stood firm, and even Europe rejected Donald Trump's demand to impose similar tariffs on India. But the India-UK FTA is the biggest snub yet to President Trump's weaponization of tariffs. As part of the FTA, India will cut levies on 90% of British products sold in the country, from whiskey and medical devices to machinery and lamb. On the other hand, India will benefit from Britain slashing tariffs, leaving 99% of Indian exports to Britain facing almost zero tariff barriers. India's average tariff on UK products will fall from 15% to just 3%. Key sectors are expected to benefit, with whiskey tariffs dropping from 150% to 75% immediately and then to 40% over the next decade. It will also facilitate the movement of Indian professionals to Britain for better employment opportunities. Economic think tank, the Global Trade Research Initiative, says the pact will offer a significant price advantage and enhance exports to the UK by enhancing India's competitiveness in the British market. Britain and India already share a mutually beneficial trade relationship, as the bilateral trade reached $21.34 billion in FY24, up from $17.5 billion in financial year 2022. The move reflects UK's Labour government's desire to cement a long-standing strategic and economic engagement with India, despite US's tariff upheaval, reflecting global confidence in the rise of Indian economy in the 21st century as a superpower. Displeased with the Modi government rejecting any US mediation in the recent India-Pakistan war and then refusing to halt Russian oil imports, Donald Trump labeled Indian economy as dead economy back in July this year. But if President Trump can invite the army chief of a terror state like Pakistan to the White House, then why shouldn't India maintain relations with Russia?
It has to be an understanding where our bottom lines, our red lines are respected.
It remains to be seen if Donald Trump's sudden trade shock will eventually benefit the US economy, but for now, the news is not good. Latest reports suggest 22 US states are in or in the verge of recession, and the risk could be much higher. US trade barriers on India, among other factors, could already be contributing to steep inflation in America. Chief economist at credit rating agency Moody's had claimed recently, quote, "For the average American, the risk shows up in two ways. It means higher prices at the store, and it means job disruption across industries tied to food, good, and transportation. Prices are already rising. You can see it in the data. But they are going to rise to a degree that it will be impossible for people to ignore." On the other hand, the International Monetary Fund has hailed India as the global growth engine and downplayed any major impact of US tariffs. India remains the fastest growing large economy among the global top 50. India recorded GDP growth of 7.8% in the April to June quarter, which was the best performance in the last 5 quarters. Amid the global trade tariff uncertainty, the Indian economy is set to grow further, with projection to reach $34 trillion by 2038. According to August 2025 edition of the EY Economy Watch, India is well positioned to outperform all other major economies at least for the next 2 decades. The stable outlook has validated India's firm stance to maintain its strategic autonomy and resist US trade pressure, which sometimes even got ugly.
Understand what's going on here. You got Brahmins profiteering at the expense of the...
However, things do appear to be cooling down. Prime Minister Modi hailed President Trump's leadership on the Israel-Gaza peace plan recently, and the duo also held a telephonic conversation. India-US trade talks also continue in the background, with reports suggesting that America could lift the 25% additional tariffs on India as soon as November. But what do you believe? Was the Modi government right to stand up to American pressure? Leave a comment with your opinion, hit the like button and subscribe to Inconnect News.